Back at it, Brown.
What's going on, man?
Talk to me, brother. How you been?
All
How's
good,
life
man.
since you're back at it?
Back at it. So it's back at it in a couple of ways. We're gonna get right into it. So I am this week. I am back at it, Brown, and I back at it in a few ways. Back at it in the sense that back at training to
Hmm.
almost full capacity. Back at feeling good. Back at feeling rejuvenated and replenished because of the food,
Beautiful.
because of the sleep, because of the routine. And it's just felt awesome. Like checking in with Nick this week and just being like, okay, how's things feeling? How's things, whatever.
Hmm.
And it just felt great. Like everything's been on point. Not like weights that I was struggling with towards last week are just like flying up, and I'm just like, okay, this just feels nice. Like this just feels like how it should feel. But
Hmm.
it's interesting that it happens so quickly. Like your body gets a
Hmm.
bit of replenishment, gets a bit of sleep, and you can kind of that realignment doesn't take long. You know what I mean? Like as soon as
Yeah.
as soon as your body knows that okay, this is kind of where I need to be, long term, it's happy just to snap back and
Hmm.
yeah, you just feel great. So that's one sense in which I am back at it, Brown. Yeah.
Respect. That's like because you created like good baselines leading into Ramzan. So even though it comes down a bit, is
Mm,
your body's able to quickly be like, oh, I remember where I'm supposed to be, and then it just goes back to that, right?
that's it. That's it. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in terms of the sleep, that's one thing that was definitely struggling with, and especially with having eaten a big meal at night and then trying to sleep as well. It kind of bleeds into the next day, and then
Hmm.
you feel a bit more drained the next day, and then it kind of that recurring thing carries you through the month. And by the time you get to the last couple of weeks, the last couple of days, you are feeling it. And obviously the days get longer, so you're just like, okay, well, this is tough now. But
Yeah.
yeah, the tiny bit of reset, and yeah, even though like the scale weight's not changed, I just feel like my being just feels a bit more like oh, okay, cool, this is fine now. I've got this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's the general sense I'm getting from my body, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool to be back at it.
Yeah. Whole new level of gratitude.
Yeah, man, that's the one. That's the one. And I think yeah, like we were talking about before we started this about the feeling that fasting gives you by taking something away. When you get it back, you're so much more appreciative of it. And you
Hmm.
said like gratitude there. I completely agree, and I think almost uh, you're you're not happy that you had to lose it in the first place, but in a way you are. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
like you said, you appreciate it so much more, and you see the value that it brings. So when you do get it, you're just like, oh shit, this is legit. I want this in my life. And the second kind of follow on from back at it, Brown, is that I'm fasting again. So today is a day
Hmm.
where I'm fasting, and this is I think I mentioned this 2 podcasts ago. They're like the month after Ramzan is called Shawwal, and
Hmm.
in that month we're supposed to try and get in 6 fasts across the entire month. So it doesn't matter when you do them. You can do them like my mom's done them like consecutive days, and she's done now. Or you can do like me, and like you can take a bit of a break, and then you can kind of come back to them. So that's the other way in which I'm back at it, Brown. Just to say that
Hmm.
okay, now I had the week where, like I said, I felt good. Felt good. That I felt kind of that I was back at it with training, with sleep, with routine, feeling good, training good. But now I've actually gone back into fasting, which is something that I'm going to keep up. I'm going to keep up year round. I want to have it a 1 day a week where I remember what it feels like to have not, and
Hmm.
that's gonna make the having that much sweeter.
Yeah, man. Raise those gratitude levels right up.
Always, man.
Get that
Always.
serotonin flowing through your brain.
That's the one, bro. That's the one. It's perspective. It's always perspective. I think
Yeah.
we touched on this. I think it was last week or the week before. We just like put yourself back in it, and
Hmm.
we can't really create that environment. You know, I mean, we can't create an environment where it's you going out of your way because it's just not productive. But you can kind of do it within your environment to the point where
Hmm.
I'm doing my day to day, but I'm having this ever present thing of I'm kind of hungry right now. I
Hmm.
want to kind of I want to break, and that's kind of a metaphor for whenever you want to break in life. Like your circumstances will be completely your circumstances will be completely different to mine, but you've got to know that there is in some cases, in most cases, there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel, especially if you start hold on through that struggle. So
Hmm.
this is something that I kind of want to do for myself, though, because I feel like when I'm in the gym and the reps are getting hard, I always want to be like, look, as that time ticks by, you're getting stronger, and as
Yeah.
those reps tick by, you're just adding to yourself. And it's the same thing. Even though it's tough, it's like you're adding to that mental fortitude, and that mental fortitude is a resource you can then go and use in terms of kind of conquering the rest of your life. So yeah, it's powerful, man. Powerful, feels good.
Yeah, fully, man. Transferable. If you want to put corporate speak on it, transferable skills.
Love it, love
it. Nah, man. I just ruined it. I'm sorry, man. I'm not going to say that
No,
again.
bro, no. I can see it like corporate wellness day. Like,
Yeah,
just feel like
exactly.
we can take this skill, we put it into your wealth management agency. Like, just like roll it forward. And tell me
Exactly,
agree,
man.
Tell me agree.
That's it. Yeah, but that's the point, though, right? It's like, where have you done something like good and helpful and useful in your life? He's like, oh, I've done it in that domain. He's like, okay, well, is there anything stopping you taking those principles and putting it somewhere else? It's like, no, actually, it's just you've never thought to make that cross transfer, right? And I think that's quite actually useful for people to know, based on some of the questions that we've had come in this week, which we'll get to. And yeah, man, that's some good stuff. Are you going to do 6 days on the trot? Or are you going to
No,
do
I'm going to
just
split them
one
up.
week?
I'm going to split them up. Yeah. Next one I'm going to do, I probably will pick a day where I'm not the busiest of my schedule.
Yeah.
Today I can kind of see the tan on my forehead a little bit. I've been at the track in Leicester. There's a track really close to the gym where I currently work, and I've just been there all day with clients. Like I took my barbell in my car,
Oh,
took my
sick.
kettlebells, my bands
Oh,
and stuff, and I'm just
class.
like, get to the track. Let's go. Let's play here. And it was such a good day. Such a good day.
That is
Really
awesome.
diverse bunch of clients, one after the next after the next. And yeah, had good time with them. Got to give them kind of hour and a half slots, and
Nice.
good time to chat, good time to kind of catch up, good time to train. And then yeah, it was just a brilliant day all around. Everyone was happy. Everyone was kind of everyone got good time with me. This is the first time I've done sessions since lockdowns kind of
Yeah.
eased up, and it was just a lovely day. Really nice.
Fantastic, man. That sounds beautiful.
Yeah,
It's like sunshine all day as well, right?
yeah,
Hanging out with
yeah.
people, making
That's
change.
it.
That's a damn fine day.
Too right, man. That's good people. You know, you have these clients that I call them clients, but they're just people that are just aligned with the things you align with, right? And they're with it enough to be like, here, okay, I'll happily invest in you, and so you can kind of impart onto me, and I'm happy to. I want that transaction in my life. So yeah, in ways that they're very much the best kinds of people. So yeah,
Yeah.
great day.
Fantastic, man. That's good. Glad to hear it. And like, what is it? There was a couple of things that we decided would be good to talk about, which we didn't actually get around to last week, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, kick it off, man. There was something that you felt like there was something on your chest, and like it'll be good to get it off.
Yeah, bro, you're right. You're right. So this was I was talking to a friend of mine. We worked together when I was in London, and he was talking about how he's had an experience with a boss of his currently or ex-boss now, and basically it was that at the top of the hierarchy of any kind of industry or business or whatever, there is the one leader who's kind of got the idea and set the business up, but then there's also these people around that one person who are quote unquote yes men, and obviously yes men I mean yes women, yes people. Um, let's
Got to
not
get all
fill anything
PC
up.
up in here.
Yeah, we're just let's keep it 21st century. Yeah. progressive. Yeah, so it's basically that thought that those people around that person at the top of the industry, at the top of the business, they serve. So they feel like they serve a need, but really, what they're doing for that person is on a daily basis telling them yes. They're telling them that what they're doing is great, what they're doing is exactly where they need to be, and for whatever reason, they feel like that's the influence they need to have on this human being. And the conversation I had with my friend was that that's exactly what they don't need to be doing. And in many of these instances, the person at the top has got to the top. 1,000,000% respect to them for doing that, for putting the graft in. However, the people around you, do you want to really surround yourself with yes men or women? Or do you actually want to have people around you to call you out on your bullshit and actually drive you forward? And it sounds like I'm picking holes, but really it's just a fact of life. Like, do you want, even though you've made this great empire, this kind of very successful business, is it that you now want people around you to just stroke your ego? Like, those people, could they be serving you in a better way? And sometimes serving you is not, or often, a lot of the time, serving you is not telling you you're brilliant and telling you that your ideas, your shit don't stink, right? But telling you that, you know what, you need to address this because it's a limiting factor of your thought process right now, and going forward, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. So do you want that guy? Or do you want the person who just be like, yep, what you're doing is fantastic, I love it? You know, you kind of see these like these people depicted in like shows, like remember Entourage, like and there's people, the people that just kind of like they fancy it up and they make you feel like you're on a pedestal, and they just build your ego, and they kind of hype men. And I think you got to be careful with those kind of people, and as to what their intentions, and does it really serve you? So that was the crux of the conversation I had with my friend, and I kind of got to thinking as to how you can also be a yes man to yourself in your day-to-day kind of life, and give yourself what you think you need, and almost let yourself off and feel like, okay, you know, this is something that I need to do, but I can kind of let it slide, and I can kind of be easier on myself. Is that really what you need in this setting? And does it actually move you forward? So yeah, that was the thought process I had around it. And I think we're just gonna dive into that a little bit now. What do you think about that, Grin? Like, what's your first thoughts about let's cover the corporate kind of example that I gave?
I mean, that's a good example that just filters through, I think, for the rest of life as well. When it comes on an individual level, it's so important to be around people who just build you up, but in the right way. You know, there's no false confidence. There's no false sense of things are okay. There's something about self-esteem in there as well. There's some interesting stuff where, you know, people will tell you that, oh, you know, you're okay. Like, you might not feel okay, in the sense that if you're being honest with yourself, you might just realize that, you know, okay, things aren't going as well as I'd like them to do, things aren't going as well as I'd like them to in certain domains in your life. And then when you figure that out, is like, you need people around you to ask you the right questions around, you know, how is it affecting you, and where do you see yourself, what do you think you need to do about it, rather than people being, oh, you know, things are okay the way they are, like, don't, you know, grass is always greener on the other side. It's like, no, that's not the point. The point is, you're not happy with something, you can feel something's not correct, but if you're going to hide it from yourself, and you're not surrounded by people who notice that either, then you can either end up in a bit of a downward spiral, where you just stay in that zone, and then things can get worse for you, and the worry grows and the anxiety can grow, or you can just be in that malaise where, you know, I've described it before as well, where sometimes you can just find yourself in a bit of a haze, where you're not really moving forward, and you don't feel like you're moving backwards, but because you're not moving forward in whatever you're trying to do, you are automatically moving backwards, because life just kind of gets away from you if that's happening. So you've got no one around you to call that out, and in a structured way. It's like, you know, it's always got to be in a structured, constructive way. Then that's that's a problem. And then if you're doing that to yourself as well, it takes a certain level of self-awareness, but that's why we talk about it all the time, is building awareness, you know, so that you can actually make decisions which are in alignment with where you want to be, in alignment with how you actually want to be. And I think that's massively important, and that's why I find myself lucky, like, you know, to be surrounded by people who, if I have a thought, I can get challenged on it, and in a constructive way, rather than what can happen is, a lot of times people will just like beat each other down, or they will just be like, yeah, it's all good, and that's not, and it's just, either way, it's not ideal, because you can't have anything constructive out of it. And so I think it's a very useful thing to be talking about, because you're just not, you want to be able to evaluate your like sphere of influence, and look at it and be like, who could I rely on to help me move forward and build me up, rather than who can I rely on just to kind of make me feel good about myself? And it takes a bit of balls to be able to pull yourself away from people who just make you feel good about yourself when there's no justification for it, because that's always nice, right? But it's false. It's a false sense of kind of fulfillment, and it's kind of just stroking your ego, as you said, and that's not helpful. So it's just papering over the cracks. So what you really need is like no one to like berate you, and no one to hype man you up when it's not due. I'm a hype man. I love being a hype man, but it's for the right reasons, right? It's like when somebody's done something sick, or it's just like somebody needs a positive reinforcement, or somebody just needs a little bit of encouragement to do something. That's great, but you can't be a hype man for someone when they're just like, this is a bit of a shit scenario, but yeah, we're going to try and just like try and put a smile on our face and be like, yeah, it's great, everything's all good. You need so you're gonna have to and look at that and be like, where can I actually get constructive help from, which asks me the right questions, as opposed to tells me what to do. That's one thing, and also gives unsolicited advice. And there's a lot that we could go into in that, and there's but yeah, just basically get away from people who just don't ask you the right questions about where you're at, where you need to be, and don't like notice how you're doing as well.
That's true, man. That's true. I think there's a few things you touched on there with like self-esteem and ego being kind of the drivers with these things, and you kind of see it with you watch Game of Thrones?
No, man, never watched it.
You didn't watch
I'm
it?
one of those.
Good, man.
I'm one of those freaks.
Good. I like it.
Really?
I like it. I knew there's more reasons to why I liked you than I knew, and that's another one of. I unfortunately did watch it.
That's genuine. That's genuine praise.
Right there.
That's no hype, man. That's no yesing. I'm gonna take it.
That's for you, bro. That's for you.
Yeah.
You abstained, and I'm proud. I unfortunately did not abstain, and I started watching it, and then obviously I got the shitstorm that was season 8 and most of season 7. Anyway, the point of that was that you see it kind of in this hierarchical kind of depiction on the show, where you've got this king, and he's like a tyrannical leader, and he's got these like his cronies kind of thing, right? And they kind of, some of them are just like, oh well, you want to be careful there, like you want to look after yourself here and be and then there's the other guys like, no, king is almighty, is all powerful, like kind of he can do as he pleases, and this is the dynasty that ruled the world for 1,000 years and all this bullshit. And you need to basically, and like those people never last, you know what I mean? Because like you start leaning on those people, and they're the flakes, you know, they're the ones that will kind of run at the first sign of danger, because they build themselves so high. And then you look behind the curtain, and it's just like a man pulling strings. It's like, oh, you ain't nothing, man. Like you're actually just a paper man. Whereas the other person is actually there for your best interests, and that's the person you want to hang your hat on, and you want to make sure that they've got your back. You know what I mean? That even though it doesn't seem like it, it's like your mum isn't there to tell you that the world isn't, like, back to that Rocky poster, right? The world isn't sunshine and rainbows, right? That brilliant impression from last week.
But every time you mention it, all I want to do is go, ain't no sunshine and rainbows. I just want to get into it every time.
That's imprinted in my mind. That voice is imprinted here. You know what I mean? When so good. It's so good.
Fantastic.
That was a highlight of this podcast so far. Is you just busted out this Rocky impression from last week.
I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll find a theme each week where I can riff off these monologues, because I realize I know like 6 off the top of my head. It's like we'll do Rocky one day when, you know, life's tough. We'll do Al Pacino any given Sunday. We'll do Al Pacino's Set of a Woman as well. It's about integrity. We'll do Good Will Hunting when, you know, you're pissed at the system or something, and we'll just do a riff there. And then what else is it? Jack Nicholson, You Can't Handle the Truth. It's like that whole riff. I'll try and do the voices as well.
these powerful humans you're just channeling for your inner being. I love it. Love it. Just rising up with this Al Pacino fury.
Exactly. With that rusky voice.
Yeah, that rasp. Brilliant. It's brilliant. He speaks the truth. And just kind of transitioning back, like that's the person that in Rocky, that what he's doing is telling the cold hard truth. And however it's delivered, that however you perceive it to be, that's how it is. You know what I mean? Like you can think of it as like rosy and dandy, but is it actually rosy and dandy, or like is this person actually chatting the truth and trying to kind of help you in the long run? Whereas the things that are stopping you receiving that truth are often your ego and your perspective, and these people around you are kind of being that yes people. They're doing nothing but kind of shrouding you from the actual truth. And we wanted to segue. I think we talked before this. We wanted to segue this into when we coach our clients. And you had some interesting points on that as well, bro.
Yeah, that was like actually also what you said there made me think about actually what happens in the brain as well, where we're overly optimistic, and I think it ties in as well. But I'll come back to that.
Sure,
And
sure.
but yeah, when it ties into clients as well, because again on every level, it certainly applies here as well. So you can pick up people can pick up a trainer, or people can pick up a coach who's they've hired them because they've got a goal they want to achieve, and this they know that at least this person is supposed to be able to help them get to that end goal, right? But then along the way, you're gonna be met with some challenges. It's the whole point. If you're somewhere where you don't want to be, and you're trying to get somewhere where you're not, but is where you want to be, that's a journey, right? There's a struggle there, because you have to be conscious of the journey, and that takes a lot of thought, and that's why you hire someone as well, because they guide you through that. And then so when you meet those challenges, a lot of the times you don't really want to face them as well. I mean, like I can speak about it from personal experience, and then coming to some realizations with having the right people around me, and also just like having that self-awareness. But then can see it when clients are on that journey as well. It's like you start talking to them about something, and then a little bit of tension arises, and it's just because like the topic is sensitive for them. And but where it's sensitive is where you're going to make the most change. Where you're feeling the most vulnerable is where you're going to make the most change. So you cannot shy away from that, because you have to, as you said, go through the fire to become the weapon. You said that last week. That's sick. And you like to go through the fire, you're burning, right? But that thing that's burning you is the thing that's making you the sharp, strong weapon that you're going to come out being. So you have to have people that shine a light on that, and they got to be able to do it and in a way that resonates, and is like, okay, look, it could be an uncomfortable thing, but we need to be able to address this so you can get to where you want to be. And that's where also having somebody who's going to keep you accountable to that vision that you have for yourself is super, super important. And because it can get uncomfortable, there's plenty of trainers out there, and it's like in a lot of cases not through any fault of their own, because it takes a while to figure this stuff out, and it takes a while to figure out that you've got to hold that space where there is that tension, because that's where the change is made. But because we're also like, we do this because we want to help people live a better life, and when you do that, you're automatically wanting to comfort people as well. But again, we talk about it all the time. You got to go through the fire. You got to be uncomfortable to make that change. So you have to have somebody who's willing to hold that space with you, and is going to make you feel uncomfortable. But that's purely because it's driven out of pure love and pure respect for your goal and for your vision for yourself, so that you can move forward. And so if you're there and your coach is just like a yes person, and you get to a point where, they might touch the surface of something that might be sensitive for you. It could be like eating habits. It could be how much you're training. It could be stress and stuff like that. Anything that might be holding you back. And then, you might get like, the individual might be defensive about it, and that's completely fine. But then, we've got to delve into that a little bit and understand why that's going on. But if at the first, like you get the first hurdle, and then you're not going to jump over it, then we're going to spend way too much trying to jump that first hurdle, when 2-3 weeks down the line, if we did that right now, we're halfway down the track instead, and we're much better off. And instead, we're tackling the second, third, fourth thing, instead of still being stuck on the first thing. And you're that much further along. Having also, because it's a compounding effect as well. It's like when you tackle one problem, you realize you have the capacity to do that, and that feeds your ability to tackle the next problem and fuel that ability, and it gives you the fire, and it gives you that forward movement, and it gives you that reward hit, and that keeps you moving forward. Whereas if you're not going to have somebody who does that for you, who holds you in that space and is comfortable with being uncomfortable, you're not going to make the change that you need to make. So you can't be you can't be hiring a coach where ultimately, like in the beginning, it can feel like it's the right choice. But then somewhere down the track, if they're not helping you through that plateau, or if, you start to pay attention to how they're potentially coaching you, and you realize actually they're not holding me accountable the way I need to be held accountable. And that's a safe space for you, but it's not a good space if you actually got somewhere you want to get to. You want to embody the physical body that you've always desired to have. And so it's not a good place to be. You need somebody who's going to be able to shine that light and on the issue, so that you can move through that issue and get to where you want to be.
I like it, man. I just kind of had the vision when you were talking there of almost like a kind of a traveler, and they're kind of at a kind of a desert, and they see the distant kind of town or whatever, and they meet another traveler, and the other traveler is somebody who can help shine the light, and he's kind of shining it at the town, but he shines it kind of in the near ground, and there's loads of like a jungle you kind of got to get through, and that is the way, that's the relationship this needs to be. It's like I can show you, because I've been through that jungle, I can guide you through it, but it's got to be in a way that's not going to be forgiving. So I can't really be forgiving to get you through this. I've got to show empathy, because I know you've never been through the jungle before, but I've got to show you that this is actually the path. Like, this is actually the path. You need to go through this, and I can't just mollycoddle you and expect that jungle is not going to eat you alive. Like, it will. You know what I mean? That's what it does. And if you are serious about having a goal, then this is the burning that you have to go through. You know what I mean? Like, this is completely intrinsically tied to it. And I said it earlier, but I think reframing that difficulty, you know what I mean? The reframing that is so necessary. Like, when you're in the gym and you're feeling that pain kind of coming through, and you're seeing it as pain, you're seeing it as like, oh, this is damaging me. It's not damaging you. It's actually building you up. And the fact that you're, as a person, facing that thing that you feel in another day you would have got a yes person to kind of just like, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it, making you kind of avoid the situation. Today you're facing it. In itself, that's growth. In itself, that's inside, intrinsically, you're developing as a person who's not aligned with being okay with less. Like, the goal is always an achievement. It's a next step on the rung of the ladder. That is what you've initially aligned yourself with. That's why you've got a coach, or that's why you've got somebody, plus you've got people around you push you forward. So you having any kind of like yes person tell you that it's okay and whatever, it's immediate misalignment, and it's like, catch that in the bud. Whereas you start doing those reps, you start kind of being that person, all of a sudden you're less inclined, like you said, to use this fire to quell other, to use this strength to take out other fires in your life. Whereas all you'll be probably doing is slowly setting other fires, and then you won't have any fuel to put them out with. You know what I mean? That's you've got to see yourself as, like you said, tying it from one thing to the next. And when you have the confidence to align with yourself and to actually be true to yourself, and then go through that one difficult experience, that one difficult ordeal, it really just allows you to access other things much easier. And like, the way my mind's working right now with studying training and studying exercise, it's similar to like the first time you hit a stretch. But you'll know this because your kind of background with working with the nervous system, working with stretching, working with mobility, is one that it's painful. You know what I mean? Like, you don't feel right when you sit in a kind of a pigeon pose glute stretch for the first time. You're just like, this ain't nice. Like, especially after a whole day of maybe sitting down, this is just not a nice place to be. However, you stick it out, you know it's a good thing for you, and all of a sudden you can squat ass to grass, or you can do a lunge, or you can do the next thing, and it's like, okay, I access this through doing that painful thing. So let me do more painful things. Let me do more kind of correct painful things, and maybe I'll be able to access more of my life as a result.
Yeah, completely, man. And I mean, I'll use myself as an example there, because Google Photos again does that thing of on this day in 2014 or whenever the hell it was, right? Something came up last week, and it was me. I don't know if we talked about it last time, but it was me doing mobilizing myself so I can get into the bottom of a squat. and doing some mobility work as well to be able to do a pistol. And what's crazy is, so at the time, so if it was like 6 years ago, I'll be 28, right? 27, 28. And so when I look at the squat picture, is like I'm just about ass to grasp, but I'm really leaning forward to try and make myself hold the posture. And what's amazing is, because of that prerequisite work that I've done then, right now I could jump out of bed and I could be sitting in a squat and in better posture than after I had fully mobilized it, and did everything I possibly could to be in a good position 6 years ago. And it was the same with the pistol as well. So I was doing the pistol, I've got like my arms up in the air, my toes are lifting up, and I've just about managed to hold it. And then now is the same thing. Is like, and just to prove it, I did it the other day as well. It's like I saw that picture, but it's like I feel like I can do that just getting out of bed now. So when I woke up the other morning, I got out of bed, got into a pistol, and I was like, "Yep, I can do that. I can just walk out of bed and get out of bed, and I can just stand there, and I can just get myself into a pistol." And that's because I've done that prerequisite work, and I've gone through having to do all of that, and so that I can hold on to that level of mobility, stability, and strength in that position, and not have to worry about doing it ever again, in a way. So that's what you get when you go through the fire. You're able to access something, and then in a way you're almost in a position to be able to take it for granted. Because, and then how could you ever imagined that you'd be in a position where you take that kind of thing for granted when you never even knew you could do it in the first place, right? When you started out on that journey. So it's a beautiful thing about having those kinds of reminders come up, because you're like, oh crap, this is where I came from. I don't even, like, you almost don't even remember being there, but when you're reminded, like, oh yeah, I remember what I went through. I was training like 4 times a week just to be able to get into that position. And it's not about just getting into the position, because what does it represent? It represents good control over my joints. It represents good joint health, in theory, when you've done it properly. It represents good stable base, and it represents the ability to handle movement through a full range of your joints as well, which not a lot of people end up having access to by the time they get to, even my age as well, let alone in their 40s and 50s. So if you're able to do the work now, you'll thank your future self will thank you for it, to the extent where you could even take it for granted and not even just forget that that's your new baseline. So you have to want to be able to like take that experience and use it to create that new baseline for yourself.
Too right, man. Too right. That's such a legit story, because I can 100% resonate with that. And it's like what you're seeing in my eyes now is, we talk a lot about alignment, we talk a lot about awareness, and then action, right? It's like you've seen where you wanted to go 6 years ago. You were aligning with it every single day for that time, and now when you action it, it's like that's the physical representation of alignment. Is that your body has agreed through the channels that it can agree with you, through the nervous system being on your side and giving you ranges of motion and giving you agreed stability. It's like, okay, well, you've done the work, you've done the prerequisite work, you've spent your ass in that squat position. Let's agree that you've got this now. So here you go, have this. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way the nervous system kind of, in my opinion, well, in my kind of mind, would have that conversation with you to say like, okay, right, well, I see what you're doing here, happy that you're doing it, and here you go. And that's the same for somebody who is shown the discipline when it comes to dieting, when it comes to, okay, I do know that I need to face this problem in my life about food. I need to face this. Now, when I do face it, when I do conquer those demons, the representation is someone with a six pack. But what does that really mean? If we look at the subtext, that person faced that issue, and their body gave them the byproduct of something that we glorify a lot in society, which is rightly so, because it's health, and it's like, but what we are actually glorifying is alignment. Somebody who's successful is at the top of a business and done something really, really amazing for the world, hopefully. They're aligning with their values, and it's the representation they've had of their drive, of their action, has had this implication on the world. And that's what we're privy to see. You know what I mean? That's really what we're seeing in all these multifaceted contexts, is somebody who had the awareness to fix a problem, didn't shy away from it. Like, that's another stage of awareness. It's like, are you backing out the door while you know you've got to go forward, or are you trying to shroud yourself with these yes people to kind of take the heat off, or are you aware enough that, you know, like, it's back to that nihilism question. Like, we know we can have good impact on the world, but we know we have to probably go through the mill a few times to have that impact. Like, that's the rite of passage. It's the rite of passage with the nervous system. It's also the rite of passage in the world. Like, there's millions of people. Why should I pick you? Well, you've got to show yourself as a shining bright star for me to put you at that right precipice, right? And the people that do that, you see them, and they've got a different energy. You know, they've got a different fire about them. And for us to align ourselves with that, you're going to find out that it's not easy. And but it's not a bad thing. It's not a thing that you want to shy away from. And it's so many facets in which you can become. You know what I mean? As long as you're kind of aware of it, it's pretty powerful, man. Pretty powerful.
Yeah, completely. And it's not easy, but once you've done it, it's like, oh, that is easy now. You've just again upped your level, and you've got more things in your back pocket that which don't, like, you know, you can say, I own that now, as opposed to it owning you. And the more you do that, and again, we talk about it being something that you can transfer across all domains in your life. So it's not just about physical activity. It's about what it represents outside of that. You know, it can help you be more productive at work. Forget about the actual physiology of how it works to make you more productive at work, which it does. The healthier you are, the more physically fit you are, you will be more productive at work. If that's like, you know, being productive at work, everybody needs to be productive at work, because that's how we make a living. So to be able to get more out of that, you need to be physically healthy. But forget about the physiology of it. It's what you learn in this domain, which you can transfer into the work domain, which is, I accepted a challenge here and I can do that there. And then a lot of people actually are better in their work domain than they are in the physical domain. So then you have to ask yourself, actually, what makes me good at my work? How can I apply that to getting healthy and fit so that I'm even better at work as well, if that's one of your goals. But kind of people, we just forget that, you know, we forget that. It's like, you'll forget that in the work that you do, in a lot of cases, you would have had a mentor, you've had a boss who's guided you through something, or you've had somebody who you respected and looked up to, and then somebody you could ask questions to, and then they help guide you. Why wouldn't you do the same with your body? You know, don't forget that everybody needs a mentor. Coaches need coaches. We talk about that all the time. Is like, we help each other out. We seek mentorship from people who are way better than we are. And that makes us better, so we can pass on the message to other people and help them out. And they're able to, so like, you want to be able to see the value in looking after your physical health, just the way that you see the value in looking after your income.
Yeah, bro. That's so powerful, man. You know, you just triggered a thought in my mind, and I'm not going to share it. I'm going to tell you about it off air. I'm going to tell you about it off air. And we're going to work on it, because it's pretty special.
Sick.
I'm going to start letting this idea just germinate in my mind, and we're going to run with it. But this is something we're going to surprise the people with, because I feel like we're going to riff on this. So I'm going to write this down, because this
do it, man.
This is a pretty special one, I think.
Yeah, write it down.
Put it in our Facebook chat. Our Instagram, our WhatsApp, even.
Do it. That's beautiful. And in the meantime, actually, while you do that, that reminded me of like, I don't even know how long ago it was now, but we were talking about it with it's still in context with having yes people around, but it's also talked about how your brain works with regards to optimism. So if so this is that flawed confidence, right? So this is having people around you, or you yourself being blind to your own reality in a way, and being blind to needing to make the certain decisions which are going to help you move you forward. So there's because I mean, like that book I was telling you about, The Secret Life of the Mind, and you're cracking up about something. It's just this idea.
You said the words "move you forward" as I typed the word "move you forward."
Oh, really? That's right there.
A line.
Exactly.
Right, I just need it.
Draw a straight line from my brain to yours.
So my cup and my string are right next to your cup and your string.
Yeah, it's from the brain though. It's like not even speaking. That's jokes, man. And I was like, "What's cracking up? What did I say? Did I say something stupid?" And he's like, "Nah, this just came up." So it's just basically had to do with your brain. So I was telling you, like, I've been reading that book, The Secret Life of the Mind, and the thing about that book is, it's taken me longer to get through than I thought I would, because it's just like it's got so many interesting talking points and or rather thought-provoking points where I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to put this down, I'm going to think about it. So I get like 5 pages through and I put it down and I'm thinking about it and I'm like writing about it a little bit. I'm just like, does that make sense? Do I get it? Do I really get it? Whatever. So it's really great for that. And there's also just a bunch of like, it's just bits where I'm just like, oh shit, that was sick, I'm going to go back and read that again. And so this is stuff like this is to do with optimism and pessimism, basically, and being on that scale and how your brain is making how your brain responds to news, right? Good news or bad news. So basically, somebody who is optimistic is basically has confidence in the future, right? And that's essentially what it comes down to. And so your sense of confidence in the future can be flawed, depending on how your brain responds to news. So for there's a particular region of your brain which is in both hemispheres. So when you receive good news, it activates I think it's the right hemisphere of the brain, the right part of the brain. And I can't remember which way around. I'm getting a 50-50 shot, but it's just, I was reading it last week and it's just, it's one or the other way. But so when you receive good news, there's that's part of your brain, the right part of your brain takes that information and goes, okay, cool. And that area activates. And in both people, in whether you're optimistic or pessimistic, both types of people. So, and the other thing is when you receive bad news, the left part of your brain activates. In pessimist, it activates. In optimist, it barely registers. So that area of the brain just doesn't light up. It hardly lights up, if anything. So it's almost like you're turning a blind eye to bad information, basically. to bad news about the future.
Yeah.
And so optimists have this ability to take on board good news, and I think it's like shaped through traits and stuff like that. It's definitely your upbringing has something to do with it. It's not purely biological, but there is that biological signature in the brain, basically. So optimists have the ability to kind of shut it out, whereas pessimists will take that information, that part of the brain gets activated, and then they're kind of like ruminating on it and stuff like that. So on either end of the scale, you've got optimists who, if you're too optimistic, if you're extremely optimistic, as in like unhealthily optimistic, then you're going to make reckless decisions, right? You're going to be a risk taker and you're just not going to give a shit about the actual consequences of that decision because you're excessively confident about the future. And if you're overly pessimistic, then that can be somebody who just ruminates too much. And on the worst case scenario, that's somebody who's depressed. Basically, it can trigger depression because you're always thinking about the worst thing that's going to happen. And then obviously most people are somewhere in between. They operate on some level. And I like to think of myself as an optimistic person. And I think, you're the same as well. But there's a sense, like, I'd like to think of it as being grounded in some sense of realism. Like, I'll look at the scenario that we're in current world circumstances, and it's kind of like, okay, I'll register it, and if I want to move forward, I do have to ignore a big chunk of it, but I'm not ignoring it completely. I understand that it's there, and I understand that I have to make decisions in the context of the kind of scenario that we're in. But at the same time, I can't let it stop me from moving forward. So I do always have a sense of optimism about the future. And the interesting thing about optimism is also that it's a prerequisite for mental toughness. So if you're not optimistic about your future, then what are you making decisions for, right? You have to have some level of optimism so that it keeps you driving forward. Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck in a rut. And so when it comes back to yourself, the idea that you could be your own yes person, and is like, do you have that flawed sense of flawed optimism? Do you have too much of it potentially? Are you somebody who's just keeps looking at the upside but ignores the downside? Are you somebody who is unrealistic in your expectations of the future in that regard? And so you want to be able to, temper it a little bit. You need to literally, if that is you, and that's going to be a difficult thing to notice, but then if that is you, then you want to do a bit of an analysis of like, okay, what am I not paying attention to, and which is going to have a direct impact on my life, and then be like, okay, maybe I need to temper that extreme level of optimism with with a sense of realism, so that I can make decisions which help me move forward, as opposed to being like, yeah, everything's gonna be fine, everything's gonna be rosy, everything's gonna be dandy, because obviously that's not how it works. And so yeah, you're just gonna have to figure that stuff out as well. So that's one way that you could be your own yes man, because your brain is kind of hardwired to shut out bad news if that's the way you look at things. But and if that's the case, then you just need to kind of evaluate things. You need to look at it a bit more objectively. So I thought that might be useful to share.
For sure, man. For sure. That's you've given me more ideas to flesh out my thought that I had earlier. It's exciting.
Get typing again.
Yeah, man. I want to. I'll leave it. Actually, no. I'm going to type it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget that stuff. You just when you go back, you're like, man, what was I saying? What was that? I swear I threw in a gem.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So,
and then while you're doing that, I think it's useful, because we were talking about reframing, right, earlier before we got on air, and how we can reframe a scenario for ourselves. Because it was just like, yeah, go on.
The training example. So the training example. So from earlier this week, conversations about training. You're picture yourself. You're having that session, and it's a tough session. It's a tough session. You are trying. You want to be there. You know that it's part of where you are going to get benefit from this. However, it's feeling like a slog. It's feeling like a slog. And one thing that I used to say from back in the day, when I would train on my own and train more kind of about train more in the bodybuilding kind of a strong lift kind of phase of my life, I would say to myself that you only remember the bad sessions. And I'm seeing that come good now. I'm seeing the reason why you only remember the bad sessions. And you have good sessions you do remember, and you feel good about them for about 2 seconds. And then you're like, oh, okay, on to the next thing. You put it aside and you log it in your mind as, yeah, today was a good day. But let's keep marching forward, because the big goal has not been achieved yet. However, when you have these bad sessions, they stay with you for much longer. And I feel like one of the reasons they stay with you is because those bad sessions are kind of a reminder of the work you still need to do. And they feel quite shocking in the moment. Like kind of it throws you off your game completely. It really questions whether you actually want this. And in the moment, that can feel quite jarring. That can feel like frustrating. It can bring out the more like kind of the beginning mentality in you. Like kind of you get frustrated, you get angry, you might even feel like, oh, sod this, I don't want to do this today. But really, what you need to see that as is another opportunity. Like we said about Jocko Willink last week. We said his motivational video where he's like, everything that happens, good. Like it's you got sand kicked in your face, good. Like you got like your alarm didn't go off and you have to run for the bus, good. Like all that shit is just affirmation that you want this. Like reframing like you can see what 6 inches in front of your face.
6 inches in front of your face. Now can't make you do it.
People are gonna swear like, how'd you get Al Pacino on your podcast? This is this is wild. You only had 8 episodes, you got Al Pacino in. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what to say really. 3 minutes to the biggest battle of our professional lives. All comes down to today.
Don't stop. No, just ride that way. Just ride that way, bro. That's epic. That is epic. It's creepy how good it is, man. It's creepy how good it is.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I like it. Yeah, you can choose to see that thing that's right in front of your face. That is, it's almost like you see kind of Muhammad Ali back in the day, kind of swinging the right hand and jabbing you with the left, right? It's like, I'm showing you this. I'm showing you that it's difficult. I'm showing you that it's painful right now. But what you really need to see is this guy. You need to see the other hand coming your way. And that is a metaphor in my mind for saying that in that moment, what you're seeing your internal want for this, and you're seeing the external reality of like, it's not working today. It's making you find more today. This is the day you level up. Those are the days you make the most progress. We've touched on it in the past, where we've said that the days you don't want to go to the gym is the day you definitely should be at the gym, because, like you touched on it with the meditation from last week, where you said like the person with a busy life needs to meditate for an hour as opposed to meditating for 10 minutes. Like that it's calling on you to be more in the moment. And there's a reason why you remember those days more. It's because those are the days that actually drive you forward further. You know, we talked about the missile analogy a couple of weeks ago, where it's like that missile has to course correct based upon the things that knock you off course. That day is knocking you off course, and then you've got to veer right, and you've got to come back online and align all the way through that day to get to where you want to be. And it's those days that call on you to do that. Those are the valuable ones. You know what I mean? So in terms of the strap line there, reframing your situation, it's super important that, like, now I feel like when I train, I'll be caught in a situation and it's like, for instance, my offense doesn't work. I have to see that as a good thing, because it's like, now I'm discarding this old shit offense and I'm going to upskill with a new one. I'm going to move my feet better. I'm going to step out and keep range better. It's making me better. You know what I mean? It's making me better. If somebody is doing something to me, I get caught with a shot, I get caught with a submission, or I get caught with a throw or a takedown, good, because that's also making me better. If and it's the same thing for life. You know, I mean, I always liken it back to training, whether it be training in the gym, whether it be training in jiu-jitsu, whether it be training in striking. And I think seeing it for what it really is, we are doing those reps willingly. We're doing those reps where we're willing to fail, putting yourself out there in the fire to get the feedback, and then reacting to the feedback in a way that's positive and moving us forward toward our goal. Because if I throw my spit my dummy out and throw my toys out the pram in that situation, I don't get to move forward anymore. You know, I don't get to have that continuous dialogue with my nervous system, with my being, with my positivity, with my kind of positive self, to say that this is exactly where we need to be. No one said it would be easy. No one said it would be a fun ride, but this is part of the journey. You know what I mean? And like you said, reframing that every time is just reps that we're doing, which we can then use as a kind of a reps in reserve to then go take forward to the next thing in your life and say, okay, right, well, I have this awareness now. Let me see what I can learn from this next situation. Like, it's not promised that you linearly just move through your life and you can kind of tick off one workout. Oh, I'm a bit bigger than I was yesterday. I'm a bit stronger than I was yesterday. I'm a bit bigger than I was yesterday. And I'm a bit leaner than I was yesterday. It doesn't happen like that. It just means that you have to affirm and really cover all the bases, and there will be a base that you have not covered. You've got to be aware of that as well. I think that's something that, especially when you're new to this game, we'll touch on this with one of the questions you had later, is that you're not going to have all the answers, and it's okay to not have all the answers at the start. If anything, it's a matter of fact you don't have all the answers, but doing the reps to reframe your situation will slowly move you forward to having the right answers that you need.
100%, man. That's all of that is fire. Is where do I even begin with a response to that? I think it's what it does is, every time you do that, the boundary of what's possible for you gets pushed out. So every time you're on that cusp, that's what you're doing. You're basically stepping over that boundary every time you're in that zone where, so if you just, like, if we used your workout as an example, where you're working out, you're like, you know what, I'm not firing on any cylinders today, but Jocko Willink style, good. Because that's when, you're going through the fire to become the weapon. So you're kind of stepping on that boundary, like, this ain't working, and you're getting challenged mentally as well as physically, because you're saying, man, this is shit, this isn't working out. What am I even doing? Like, how is this even worth it? I thought I was making progress and now I'm hit with this kind of bullshit. It's like, good. Because you're going to basically step over that boundary, but you're going to take that boundary with you. You're going to increase your area of what's comfortable for you now, because you've done that. So for it to be as uncomfortable as that again is going to actually take more. So your, like, say your acceptance level for what was uncomfortable was, like, say down here, and then you've just gone through that thing, and now that your acceptance level for what's uncomfortable has gone up. So you're able to handle a hell of a lot more anytime something comes at you. So that's yeah, super important. It's super necessary.
Super necessary. Yeah,
We
boy.
got it in. We got
Yeah,
it in
boy. Every time,
every
man.
time. It's super necessary.
Yeah.
We've got to do that. And and my personal example of reframing the situation was like just today. Basically, I'm fucking tired today, and that's basically because I was it? I got woken up. Got woken up at like 3:34 in the morning by an epic double sneeze from my housemate who's got hay fever. So I was like, "What the fuck was that?" Yeah, exactly. I just got shook, man. And I woke up and I was like, because he's so shook, I could feel my heart just like jumping out of my mouth. Basically, I was like, "Oh, he was sneezing. It's fine. It's okay." But I couldn't go back to sleep, right? So it's like 4 in the morning, and then it's like half an hour later. I was just like, "Okay, what am I gonna do?" And like I started scrolling my phone. I was like, "Nah, actually, you know what? Light's coming out. I'm gonna go outside." And so what I did was I went outside. So I just got myself out of bed. It's like 4:30, 4:45 now. Get myself out of bed. Light's coming out. I go and stand on my balcony, and I'm just taking in that morning light, and I'm appreciating that peace in the morning, and being awake with the sunrise, because that has numerous health benefits. And then yeah, just kind of accepting it for what it was. I slept for 3.5 hours, but it is what it is. And but because I've armed myself with some knowledge, which I know makes for healthy decisions. So essentially, what ended up happening is I did that thing, and I didn't feel like annoyed, because normally, so said, let's say, even not even that long ago, if that had happened to me and I couldn't fall back to sleep, I'd be annoyed, because I trained yesterday. I'm like, oh man, I'm not going to sleep, so I'm not going to get my gains, and I'm going to feel like crap, and I'm going to be super tired the next day. I'm not going to be able to tackle and like do what I need to do. I just want to sleep it off, kind of thing. And then I'll probably fall back asleep at 3 hours later, and I'll wake up at like 10 a.m. or something, and be like, that's it. That's the start of my day. But because I've armed myself with some knowledge recently, in more recent times, which is, if you watch the sunrise, that light, that yellow blue hue of light that you get, that wavelength of light that hits you from the sun in the morning, and just by observing the sky, just by being able to see the sky, being out in the sky, even if it was a cloudy day, it's really important for your circadian rhythms. And your circadian rhythms is just basically everything in your body runs on that 24-hour clock. And whether it's digestive system, whether it's like your nervous system, everything has a clock cell within it. And so what you're doing is the light is hitting your eyes, and your eyes are taking that light, and it's helping you set your circadian rhythm. So it sets you up for better physical health, and sets you up for better mental health. And so, because for me that knowledge was power, because it allowed me to make a decision which wasn't which previously I'd be annoyed, but now I was like, you know what, I know this thing now. This is actually going to be useful for me. I can actually be grateful for waking up early today and being able to see the sunrise when normally I don't get to see the sunrise, and at 4:50 in the morning now, because that's how early it is. And so I felt great about that. I just had a coffee. I sat outside. I was reading a book while I was outside, and it's like, it gets to 6 a.m. and I'm like, I've already been reading for an hour. And it's incredible. And that felt really good. And it was also just quite, you just get to sit with yourself a little bit as well. So I got the chance to do that, and just in the quiet of no distraction, and just be with myself, and just, be aligned with the kind of things that I really want to do, and feel good about life, let's just say. That was all done by the time, anybody would have woken up, basically. And so I reframed it, and I was like, this was great. So, I've already got this much done. It's not going to happen every day. I mean, it still won't happen every day, but instead of it being something that was like, it would have pissed me off in previous times, now instead it was something that actually I was very, very grateful for, because I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm tired, but I got to do something which made me feel pretty good and pretty pumped in the morning. And it benefited, and in one way, okay, I got less sleep, so that's not great, but in another way, I was able to benefit my health in a different way. And and then also, got a chance to have a nap for like an hour and a half, and by the time I woke up, it was 10:30. I was like, I've had 4 hours of a day, and I've still had a nap, and I'm still got a morning ahead of me. This is winning, man. This is amazing.
Yeah, right. That's
But
the one. That's
this is about reframing, right? And just
yeah,
feeling
man.
good about it. If you feel shit about it, then you just ruin your day. Instead, it was like, okay,
Mm,
where's the good in this? Like, what can I make this mean? And it felt great.
love it, bro. Love it. That's so. I can see that applying to so many people in so many ways. Where you can. It's again same thing. You can see the 6 inches in front of your face, and you can see the fact that you've been woken up and you're pissed off, like you said, and or you can choose. It's a choice. It's a choice. You know what I mean? But sometimes you have to be made aware of the options, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what we're doing right now with this is that we're showing people that there's other ways to react to things, and
Yep.
if you're constantly running that same route, you're just doing those reps, and if those reps are serving you, great. If those reps are not serving you, it's got to change. It's got to change because
100%.
you're not seeing every opportunity, and that's I think what this life gives you is that it gives you these opportunities endlessly, and then you either become better at taking those shots or you become worse at taking those shots. And I never used to understand this phrase. There was a few phrases that I'd look at them and what does that even mean? Like I remember the first one that I won't go into now, maybe we will, but the Michael Jordan one where it's like I missed
Mm.
200 free throws and 200 game-winning shots, and I someone passed me the ball and I always fluffed it, and I did it this many times, and that's
Yeah.
why I succeed. I'll
Mm.
listen to that. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, you messed up. That's bad. Like, that's not good. But then obviously you see the frame. You see the frame that he's looking at that with, and he's saying that that's the reason why it made me better because I know that I know how many of those I had. I know how many. He literally knows how many opportunities he did not get done. Right?
Mm.
He's got it down to a science in that sense. That's the text that,
Mm.
that I should have taken from that back in the day, but I wasn't aware enough to take it. Now I can see that it's these checkpoints in life, these little tests. Again, like we say, like you don't get to choose when that test comes. You only get to
Mm.
choose. You do, but you do get to choose how you react to it when you're in the fire. And
Mm.
you were in that prime state this morning to be proper pissed off, but you're
Yeah.
just like, no, it's cool. Like it is. It just is. You know what I mean? Like kind of Eckhart Tolle in the book I'm listening to, The Power of Now. Kind of some
Mm.
nights I just put it on before I sleep, and he calls it the isness of life. Like
Right.
it just is. You know what I mean? Whether it being good, whether it being bad, is you
Mm.
applying yourself to it. But you can see the opportunity, in which case you can turn it into a good.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other phrase was the more I, oh, what was it? It was, I'm going to paraphrase this, but it was the more I do, the luckier I get, or something like this.
Yes.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
heard that one? Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think the way that it didn't really sit with me before, but now I see that those opportunities come knocking, and if I can, in that instance, I've got to do it in that instance. Like that right hand doesn't present itself all the time, but when it does, I've got to put it through. Like that
Mm.
that's me winning in that moment. That opportunity of you or your friend double sneezing at 4 in the morning is an opportunity, right? You've got to see that opportunity. Like a snake, you got to strike, and if you
Yeah.
don't, those passing you by, and like life is just
Mm.
playing that game with you right now to say like, let me throw this ball out, let me throw this guy a curveball, 4 in the morning, here, have this, and
Exactly.
you can kind of, and I've seen it myself. Like first week of fasting, I started snapping. I started snapping at people that I would never have
Mm.
snapped at, and it's like, oh shit, like that's part of me. Oh no,
Yeah.
like that, like, and immediately you're like, oh, I'm sorry, like I didn't realize that would come out, and then
Yeah.
you gotta recheck yourself and be like,
Yeah.
that's not me. Like I don't want
Mm.
that. I don't want to do those reps. And the
Mm-hmm.
next opportunity it comes up, you say, I'm a bit pissed off right now. That person's asked me a question that would have triggered me a week ago. I'm not going to react like how I reacted that
Yeah.
week ago. And that's immediate growth. That's immediate awareness and
Respect.
immediate like, shit, I need to be on my game all the time. And that game
Mm.
is always on. You know what I mean? Like we don't get to take a day off from that game. If you want to be more, you're going to have to see more, and you're going to have to react to that more every single time, because that's what
Mm.
it is. It's the opportunity to be more. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like you've given us this example, great example, and I know that I probably would have picked my pillow up and slammed it against the door and be like, "What? Why is this like happening right now?" But
Exactly.
the way in which you reacted is so brilliant, and it's just a microcosm of the opportunities and how they'll present themselves. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
traffic, it's your boss, your asking you to stay late and do work, and in the moment the thing is like, why nobody else is here? They don't have to do this. It's like the same thing in school. Like I remember being in school and being like given extra work, and the only reason you're getting extra work, getting extra work and then feeling like, oh, why do I have to do extra work, or why do I have to do this? It's because the teacher sees extra in you. You know what I mean? So your work is now extra. You know what I mean? Like they're putting you in a different state, in a different game, and you've got to rise to that game, because you can be more if you accept the challenge, and you can kind of see that, or you can stay at your current baseline, your current level, and like you said, like the way you said, pick up the obstacle and move forward with it. I love that. I love that, because you're rising over it. You're literally rising as a human over this. Oh my God, this insurmountable object that in the moment looks like it's gonna crush you and like whatever. But no, you can just grow in the face of it and be like, nah, you're coming with me. I'm not gonna go in your way. You're gonna go my way. And yeah, that's the win, man. That's the win. So impressive. So impressive.
Big time, man. Big time. Is feels good. Feels good as well.
I bet it does.
Didn't didn't let it ruin the day.
Damn good. Yeah.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Yeah.
It's just
that's the one, bro.
Yeah, but it's being armed with like that knowledge, right? And for me, that knowledge is the power, because then that knowledge gave me the wherewithal to make a more aware decision, which allowed me to reframe the day, so I had a better day than otherwise would have. And yeah, that's what it's about for me, man.
Love it. Yeah, bro. Should we get into some questions?
Yeah, man, let's do it. So we got a few good questions, actually. Don't even know where to begin. I think we got several. I'm going to intersperse them.
I'm going to say thank you to the people for sending any questions in. This
exactly.
is more than we've had in the previous weeks. So clearly we're having the people out there speaking, which is great to see.
Exactly, it's super helpful as well, because I mean, it's great when you have a question. It's going to help other people with the answer as well, because there's other people who would have thought, oh, you know what, I never thought of that, but that's useful. And so yeah, we really. Oh wait, hang on a sec. Let me get that right. So we really appreciate that. And yeah, so in terms of the questions, so this one's coming in from my cousin. Shout out to Jesse. We had a phone conversation yesterday. So and we were just talking a little bit about podcasts. And so this is from the perspective of somebody who's like been on a weight loss journey before. And it was a question for you, because obviously you've done that. You spent a long time being on that transformation. And yeah, what's wicked is like when she saw that we were doing a podcast together, she was like, oh shit, Gaaainzzz talking to Umar, because she'd read about you on some website somewhere about your transformation. And I was like, that's crazy. So you probably knew him before I did.
Smallest world ever.
Yeah, it's
that's
mad,
so cool.
Yeah, so her question is basically about getting your mindset back on track after falling off the wagon during weight loss transformation. So, in your specific case, how long did it last for you if you fell off the wagon, and then what did you do with your mindset to get back on track? And that's a really important question for people who. Whatever transformation it might be, but in this particular case, weight loss transformation, and your insights into that would be super, super useful, because obviously you've been there, you've done that, and then you coach people with that as well, specifically.
Yeah, that's a great question. Is it Jesse, right? You said your cousin's name. Great. Thank you for the question. I think we've almost answered that in this podcast, and I can say that you can see it. You can apply the veil of weight loss transformation, diet, MyFitnessPal tracking, all of that stuff to it, or you can see it in every opportunity. You know what I mean? And like we just finished off talking about, seeing the opportunity and reframing the scenario, the circumstance that you find yourself in every way. When you're kind of deviate from that path, and you know when you are, no matter what the goal is, you've got a choice. You've got a choice straight away to be like, okay, something's pulled me off my path. That's fine. That's happened. Now let's get back on the path. And that's literally how long it needs to last, no matter what the obstacle. Whether it be, I've done a bad rep, I've done a rep of a lunge and I wobbled and fell, the nervous system will naturally try and correct you and keep your head off the floor. And you just got to do the same thing. Like, as soon as that happens, where you have a wobble, where you've gone to a friend's birthday party or work do or something, and you've got food there that you like indulging in, and you've indulged, okay, it's happened. Now, how can we use it? How can we take that and make sure that we can move forward to know that next time it doesn't happen? First, or we change our approach on it next time. But also, how can we use it to fuel us in the next time we get triggered in this way? And that's really all it's about. I mean, you asked me when I was doing my kind of weight loss, fat loss phase, how long did it take me to realign? And I can honestly say it didn't usually take me that long. There'll be days where I say days, it would be usually would be a day where you think, okay, I'm gonna go and have some shit food today because I need it and I want to have some. And yeah, you almost need to do that to yourself sometimes, a bit of self-sabotage, to realize that it's not where you want to be. And the next day you're like, okay, I'm back on my path now. And that's what I would say to you is use that moment to recognize that it's not where you want to be, and immediately start aligning yourself with where you do want to be. You know what I mean? Use that negative, turn it into a positive, reframe it instantly. And it is difficult. It is difficult in that moment to see the opportunity. But again, it's like something you haven't done before. So you can't be hard on yourself for not getting it right the first time. And it's something we touched on this when we discussed the question earlier. And it's like, you as a human being in this today's world are expected to know many things. One of the things is fitness, healthy lifestyle, being on that kind of, I'm on my fitness game and whatever, I'm at the gym 24/7. It's a lot. It can be pressure, right? And if you don't know how to deal with it for yourself, that's fine. That is okay, because not many people do. And the vast majority of people actually don't know how to deal with it. But where you're comparing yourself is to people like, potentially like us, people on Instagram who seemingly have it all together. And that again in turn puts more pressure on you to feel like you need to have it figured out, where in actuality it's not the case. Like I don't know anything about how to put a car back together. I couldn't do jack shit. But I can't now feel bad about that until I've done those reps, until I've put the work in. I just don't know. I just don't know. But what I can say to you is that the the thing that I would do if I was in your situation is I would align myself with a coach, with people, with friends and family who are around you, who can help you see the opportunity, And this is why people get so much value from working with people like yourself, people like myself, is because we, in essence, we sell them a coaching plan, a program, and it is what it's sometimes a monthly based thing, sometimes it's just a plan, but really what we sell them is opportunity to see that you can get right back on track straight away. And we have the check-in system where we talk to our clients, where we kind of have this time with people. You know, we call it check-ins, but really it's just a conversation. It's like, well, I'm going to call you a couple of times a week, and we're going to have a nice chat, and you're going to tell me about the times where you had temptation, and the times where, okay, you beat it, times where you didn't beat it, and we're going to reframe it and say, okay, right, well, that temptation is going to come knocking again, never goes away. And like you said, that temptation only gets bigger, only gets greater when we're in when we kind of level up, it only gets more and more. So you feeling like it's going to get easier, is going to get easier, but you're going to get better at dealing with it as well. And I think that's what I can say for myself is that whenever you have that opportunity to when you have fallen off the boil and you've lost your way a little bit, see it for what it was, see it as an opportunity, lost, and take it back to that Michael Jordan quote where it's like, that's why I succeed. See that and be like, okay, it happened again. I need to check myself even more next time. And I need to kind of create the environment, whether it be creating an environment that doesn't make you kind of go that way, whether it be creating a mindset that doesn't let you go that way, whether it be having people around you who will keep you moving forward. All of those will definitely help in that situation. But firstly, I think it's a case of not beating yourself up about it and actually just being like, okay, it's happened. How can I now, in this moment, move forward? And so, same thing we said last week about like planting a tree, right? Like you can plant it 10 years ago and you can you can have a nice tree now, or you can plant it right now and you can have a good tree in 10 years. Like pick right now, because you can't go back in time. You can just choose it right now. So that's just another way of saying, okay, that mess up is yesterday, today is right now, or that mess up was literally 5 minutes ago. I can go for a walk right now. I can go and have some apple cider vinegar right now and sort my digestion out. I can kind of just help myself. You know what I mean? Like, straight away, realign with yourself right there and then. And like Tony Robbins says it best. He says, like, you need massive opposite action right now, like in the moment. And he applies it to, obviously, he helps people with multifaceted things. But when it comes to diet, when it comes to sticking to a plan, and you've gone opposite to that plan, just see how you can straight away, bang, realign with that path, because now you're doing that massive opposite action in the right direction. Yeah, it's, you physically got the vision I get is like, you're walking down this path, all of a sudden somebody comes up to you and turns your shoulders, and you're walking back on yourself. It's like, oh shit, no, turn yourself around, walk the way you need to walk. That's immediately what you got to do for yourself. And if you can't do that, you call somebody who can help you do it. Get aligned with Instagram, and in like that motivation way, you can actually get back on your path straight away. I mean, she reached out to you. That's the important thing. Like, I had a great conversation with my auntie yesterday, and we have these intermittent conversations every other month. And we just kind of use it as ways of, like, how I use this podcast, like, to be like, okay, for this next week, I've got this fresh juice in my mind, I'm full of fuel, and I'm going to go kill it. And I think that's what we can give each other. You know, that's just a few examples of what you can do. If that's you and you fall off, figure out how you can get back on straight away. It's small, even if it's a small way, don't worry about it, just do it.
Yeah, 100%. That's all truth right there. It's like, align yourself with the bigger reason why you're doing it. That always makes the choice easier to get back on track. Beating yourself up about it the only purpose it serves is to make you feel worse, and that just makes you more likely to do it again. So what people don't understand about guilt is actually that it makes you want to do it again. So in this perverse way, it triggers these reward pathways in your brain, where when you feel guilty, you feel like you've got to serve that guilt again, even though you don't feel like that's what you want to do. That's what's going to happen, because that's what self-criticism does. It doesn't serve you that well. So look at that and just make, as you say, make that opposite action. So take that guilt for what it is, and know that you can correct guilt by doing an action in the direction that you want to go. So guilt is basically feeling bad about something that you've done, and but that's always fixable. You can always fix that. You can always make a decision which allows you to get back on track. So get yourself back on track by making that opposite action. And as Umar says, the more often you do that, the stronger that you become in that rep, in that exercise, and the less that it bothers you as well over time. And so it's always an exercise. Yeah. So no, that was great, man. That was great feedback for that one. So I hope that answers your question, Jesse. Yeah, and we got another good one coming in from one of our followers called, I think her name, I hope I say this right, Pratigia. And she sent us a question about life stresses. You know, how do you keep mental stress from negatively impacting your body and routine? And to elaborate on that is like, how do you retrain your mind to let go of what isn't in your control, and and more importantly, let things be after your efforts? So I think she's basically saying her mind has been worrying almost entire life. So I mean, that's a great question because people struggle with managing stress on many levels. And because it's such a kind of insidious part of our life, we become tolerant to it, but that doesn't mean that it's good. Just because being tolerant to it is normal doesn't mean that it's optimal. And there's a bunch of things that we can say about that. And I mean, one of the ways I'll start that off is just, first of all, going through some simple things when it comes to stress. So first of all, it's really easy to get stressed, and we don't need any help getting stressed. Obviously, this question kind of proves that, because it's like that constant state of stress. What we do need help doing is getting ourselves out of stress. We need to understand how to decompress and how to get some recovery in, so that we can buffer that stress, because the longer we go on in that stress state, the more damage it does to us mentally and physically. And actually, the point that she made was that the worst thing about it all is that it's mentally very tiring. So some techniques that you can use during the day that can help you bake some recovery into your day so you can buffer that stress. So anytime you might notice that something is engaging some stress pathways for you, you're feeling stressed out, whatever, however that expresses itself for you, simple thing that you can do is use your breath. So we talked last week how your breath is a direct link to your brain and how you can use it to calm your nervous system down so that you go from that stress state into the more relaxed state. So when you breathe out, that helps you get into a more relaxed state. And more specifically, if you breathe out, if you exhale for longer than you inhale, you're going to you're going to put yourself into a better state of relaxation. You're going to activate that rest and digest mode. So what you can do is basically a simple exercise that I like to use is to the count of 5. You breathe in through you. If you can do it all through your nose, that's great. If you can't, if you need some help exhaling, then exhale through your mouth. But breathe in through your nose for the count of 5 and breathe out through your nose for the count of 10. And you can do that in seconds, but it's just basically whatever. Do that 1-2 ratio. Seconds would be great, but if you can't hold it for that long, just do it for that 1-2 ratio. But count in for 5 and out for 10. And do that for like a minute and 2 minutes. And just try and shut yourself away from whatever the thing is that's causing you stress. Be with yourself for a minute to 2 minutes and just breathe in for 5, out for 10. Inhale for 5, out for 10. And that's going to help you. You'll be surprised at how quickly that'll help you get back into some level of calm. Okay, so that's a technique that you can use to help you bring about some level of calm. Another thing that you can do is something that I picked up from following a neuroscientist called Andrew Huberman, and he puts out a lot of good information on his Instagram page as well. And something that came from recent studies was activating there's a sighing reflex in the brain. So, when you just go, like that kind of sound where you make, or you just kind of relieved, it triggers relaxation in the body, in the nervous system. And so you can actually hijack that reflex, basically. So you can bring yourself back into a state of calm and rest by using that reflex. So the way to do that is by taking 2 inhales. So one big inhale through the nose, and then another one on top of that, and then an exhale through the mouth, a long exhale through the mouth. So that's basically going to, like, you'll probably be able to hear it. So it's going to sound like, and then if you do that for like 4 times, that is very quick at helping you reset and bring a level of calm again. Okay. And just because of the way that interacts with your oxygen levels, your CO2 levels in your body, and just brings on calm. So that's something you can do immediately. And then you've got the slow breathing technique as well. And then, so those are like some techniques you can use to help bring back a certain level of calm. But in regards to the bigger picture, the bigger question is, like, there's always a state of worry. And worry is basically, it's a state of anxiousness, agitation. There's mental unease. So if that's constant, it's basically, the way I view it is, it's probably over things that you cannot control, or if it's over things you can control, it's happening because you feel like you don't know how to solve that problem. So there's a great line. I can't remember who said it. I think it's like some sort of Zen saying from the Buddha, but it's basically, it goes along the lines of, if you're worried about something that you can't control, it's not a problem. If it's not a problem, if you are worrying about something that you can control, it's not a problem. Because in either scenario, like with the one where you can't control it, you let it go and you just forget about the impact that is having on you, because you can't do anything about it. But for the things that you can control, it's not a problem because you can figure out something to do about it. So you kind of want to set up some habits that introduce a level of like healthy thoughts and allay the worries. And there's like a couple of things that I can think of is, so number one is kind of getting to grips with what you can control and what you can't. So actually, like, again, do another situational analysis. You look at your life and you're like, I'm stressing about all these things. And so figure out all the stresses that you have, and then figure out what ones fit into that column of I can't do anything about, and what ones fit into the column of I can do something about. And then when you do that, in theory, you just split that worry in half. If it's, you take away half the things that you realize you can't control them, then you're just left with the things that you can control. And with the things that you can control, which are in your sphere of influence, you can start making action plans around what you need to do about them. It's like, okay, pick 1, 2, 3 priority, and look at it and go, okay, here's something that I can do about this. And it can be the smallest thing. It's just like any small action moving you forward. We talk about it all the time. We talk about it a lot in this podcast. Whatever the small action that you can do that moves you forward is going to help you get over that anxiety, get over that worry, because you're moving forward. And that's kind of what agitation is as well. It's kind of what worry is a little bit, is when you feel like you can't move forward in the face of a problem that you're experiencing. And so by having forward action, you are overcoming the worry that you experience. So create a plan of action to overcome that worry. So it could be, whatever that thing is just figuring out, like, what's that small thing that I need to do that's going to help me move forward to tackle this. And so it allays some of that worry. And then a big one is having a gratitude practice. So what tends to happen with worry is that we're kind of all over the place in terms of our actions, like what we value the most. And then also we're not in tune with the contentment, what's good about the here and now. And there's a lot of science around it now as well. So it's not just something where you just, speak out to the universe and hope it gives you something good to think about and do. It's actually, if you're taking a moment and dwelling on that moment for what you're grateful for in the here and now, you experience a level of contentment, which kind of replenishes your ability to move forward as well. So when you have that going on, the circuits in your brain which are involved with you feeling good in the here and now are triggered. In the same way, like when you have a really satisfying meal and you sit there and you kind of rub your belly, like, oh, that was delicious, that was great, and you're really content in that moment. It's that gets activated when you practice it for yourself. You do that subjective practice of what you're grateful for. So it can be about anything. It can be about something about yourself that you're happy about. It could be about your friends and your family. It could be about your life. It could be about your day. The more you kind of anchor it to something that's real, and that feeling of gratitude, like people in your life, the bigger the effect it has on you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to come away from it feeling all light and dandy, but by doing that practice regularly, as well, basically daily, because it doesn't take that long to engage in it. It's again, it's one of those, is you're putting the reps in, you're building the strength in it, and by having that gratitude, you're going to allay some of that worry, because you're getting the sense of actually things are okay in whatever capacity. It doesn't matter how bad your scenario is, you can always find one thing that you can be grateful for. And if you cling to that, then that helps you to replenish the resources to actually move forward. And then that forward action that you're going to do to take on those, tackle those problems that are causing that worry, you're going to have more energy for that as well. So you're going to combine the techniques around slow breathing, the slow exhale, that sighing reflex. So we take a double inhale and a long exhale through the mouth, and then getting to grips with the situations you can control and what you can't control, doing away with what you can't control, and putting your state of mind and action only on the things you can control, and putting in a solid gratitude practice as well, so that you're actually content with the here and now, which will help you move forward and help you allay some of that worry.
Bam, bam. Pow, pow, sorry. Pow, pow.
Pow, pow. Bam, bam, pow, pow, all of it, man. It's just,
brilliant.
But well, basically, again, Pratiga, it comes down to aligning yourself. It's like, what is most important to you? Because every time you do that, it feels you're feeling less worried, because you're acting in a manner which you are most happy about. It's not easy, again, because it requires making some decisions that are difficult, but it's much better than being in a state of worry, let's put it that way, and constant worry. So get yourself aligned with what is really important to you. Get yourself and actively aligned as well. So you might know what that is already, and so then just start acting out on it. That's it's as simple as that, basically. And really take time out for yourself as well. Like, figure out those things that you really love to do. So don't just keep engaging in things that are constantly trying to move you forward as well, in the sense that you're always trying to tackle the problem, because you do need a little bit of time away from that as well. Where, like, I'll give an example for myself, where I was working on like my online programming and everything like that. I spent a day doing it, and I was thinking, what, I set up some time to go to the park with my flatmate to literally play catch, and just to get out the house. But I was like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't do this. I've got all this stuff to do. But then we got to the park, we started throwing the ball around. It completely changed my focus, and I didn't even think about anything else that I needed to do, because what this was doing was activating different parts of my brain. I was working my hand-eye coordination. I was running around. I was getting fit without even thinking about it. And my focus was entirely on doing this thing and having fun. And I came away from that being like, what, I really needed that. I needed to get out of looking at my computer. I needed to open up and look at the sky, basically. I needed to chase this ball down. I needed to work on my hand-eye coordination, because it opened up my visual, spatial awareness, all that kind of stuff. And I felt great. And then I felt more replenished to actually go back and do more work. So do things that really bring you that joy, and that are important to you, which are not just about solving problems all the time.
It's a really comprehensive answer, man. Practical things to do, mental things to focus on. I hope that really, really helps, because I can see the implications that a lot of that stuff will have. That's really good, really great, man.
Awesome, man. No, I really hope that helps. And I know you got to shoot now, right?
Yeah, we can do one or two more, I think. One or two quick questions. We can fire those off, and then
sounds good.
Unfortunately, it's got to be a slightly shorter podcast this week.
Yeah, no worries. Some people be like, "Oh, thank God, man, shut the fuck
up." These guys can talk.
Yeah, exactly. You can't hold us. Can't stop. Won't stop. We're gonna keep talking. We didn't have places to be. We go on for 7 hours, and we wouldn't split the podcast up to spite you guys.
Just big ones. Let's go.
Exactly. All right. So my housemate Matt listened to the last podcast where we were talking about your takeaways from Ramadan, and some of the things that he noticed. Was his question. It was about Ramadan removing distractions for you and helped you be more present in your day-to-day life. And then in a way, he saw it as an opposition to that. You say you see food as fuel, so you can keep your focus on working towards your goals. So his image of somebody who sees food as fuel is someone who just doesn't appreciate it, is just guzzling it because it's like, I just need this because I need my macros, and I'm just going to crack on, and I have zero appreciation for food. So when it comes to being more present in your day-to-day versus keeping your focus, your eye on the prize, do you see that there's a trade-off between seeing food as fuel and being present in your day-to-day life, for keeping your eye on the prize and staying in the present? I hope that makes sense. I think I kind of mangled the question.
No, I got you. I was following. Yeah, that makes sense, man. That makes sense. I think the first thing I've got to do is I've got to readjust Matt's approach there with food as fuel is not necessarily me seeing it as a burden or a chore or anything. It's like, I need that fuel. I desperately need that fuel to kind of move me forward. So I'm entirely grateful in the moment to get that go juice to kind of be like, okay, now we can go and crack on. And when it's go juice plus aligned go juice, then I'm like, okay, this is even better. You know what I mean? That's where that replenishment gives me so much more, so much more toward the goal. So that's how I'm kind of using the food as the right fuel. And I realize that with the right fuel, the same way with as awareness is the right fuel for life, as alignment is the right fuel for life, and as action is the right fuel for life. I'm extremely happy in the moment that I've gone through those reps with that food and in that thought process, because I know it's going to move me forward. You know what I mean? That's the thought I have around food. And I think with Ramzan kind of raising my awareness around food, and now I'm in a position where I'm back to eating again most days, and in a second I'm going to go back in. I'm going to go over and open my fast. You gain appreciation for this comrade that's kind of on the journey with you. It's like that traveler analogy I used earlier. The right comrade is going to help you get there in a much healthier way, whereas the wrong one will kind of it's not going to be the same. You know what I mean? It's going to be off. You're going to be off your path in so many ways. So I feel like that's the, if I can frame it correctly this time, that's the way I actually do see food. Is this some kind of, it's a helper. It gets me where I need to be, and it's a valuable value. I don't want to devalue it by calling it a helper. Like it's integral to me achieving what I want to achieve. So my frame of it is not anything negative or anything kind of like blasé. It's that this is integral for me to move forward and achieve my goals. And I think any kind of professional athlete you see, I'm trying to align myself with that. I want to be that. You know what I mean? That's then theirs is very regimented in terms of, then, and really I've got to see the opportunity in seeing this food as the thing that's helping me move forward in the moment. So I need to be thankful for that food, for moving me forward. You know what I mean? I don't want to deviate off the path too much. I want to keep on my mission, and this food is helping me do that. So in that way, it's like I'm bringing the two together to use the food, use the fuel food to move me forward towards the goal. Like we're not kind of, there's no diverging path here. It's just one. You know what I mean? There's like kind of everything is moving me that one direction. So yeah, I hope that kind of summarizes and answers the question in that sense. I'll use what may have been wrongly framed as an obstacle as an opportunity. I'll see how, if I see it how I've explained, it just helps me further push forward.
Yeah, cool. No, because it's just that idea of somebody who just sees food as fuel, and that just means that they don't appreciate it in the moment. They can't sit and appreciate, the texture, the taste, what it's doing for you. You're just seeing it as a means to an end. But no, you're not like that. You're like, I appreciate my food. I sit with it. I'm present with it, and it's and I appreciate it because it's also helping drive me forward. So it's in line with my forward action.
Million percent, 100%. That's a great question, because it's just raising my own awareness around my own food, and that's an integral part. I think a lot of people do see food as my fuel light is on. Let me put a little bit of anything in my tank to get me through the next couple of hours, and really that's kind of seeing food as fuel. You know what I mean? Whereas what I'm doing is like, I need this to make me perform for my clients. I need to make me perform for my study. I need to make me perform for my workout. I need to make me perform for my competition. You know what I mean? Like that's the impetus I place on food. So in that setting, it's very, very important. There's no way I'm looking at it as a chore or as anything lesser than what it is.
For sure. No, that's legit, man. Yeah, that's it. And at the end of the day, I mean, like, that's the science of achieving goals as well. Like, in a nutshell, is you got to be able to appreciate what you have in the moment, and you also got to be able to keep your focus on your forward movement, and you want to be able to combine the two, and therefore, that allows you to feed the forward movement as well, in the sense that you're rewarding that forward movement process. You've got to be able to reward that forward movement process. And if you don't, then you're going to have a tough time trying to reach where you want to be, because, you just don't feel good about the process. We got that in as well. The process.
That's it. Love it, man.
Great. We're going to leave. We got several other questions that came in, but you got a jet, so we'll answer them next time.
For sure. We'll definitely get to those.
Yeah, they were the legit questions. They're extremely thought-provoking questions. It's, who would win a fight between Umar and a gorilla? And I want the answer to that. We're going to have to talk about this.
I got the answer here. We put an Instagram poll out, and you vote. You vote. You tell me what you think. I can take a gorilla. Let's go. Let's set it up.
Exactly. We got to get that picture of your back against a picture of a gorilla. And then people are gonna be like, how can a gorilla beat a mountain? They ain't beating a mountain. It's like, man, that was
King Kong vs Godzilla 1. We're gonna do it before it happens on the big screen. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Evolve, Achieve, Thrive podcast. We're gonna have our first pay-per-view event.
We got a preview of Godzilla versus King Kong. Umar fighting a gorilla. We're gonna have to do. People, you need to go on Umar's Instagram profile, Umar Malik 91 _91, and you put a picture recently of his back, and that's just basically, that's what you see is hard work, and what you see is a mountain range is like greater than the Andes. There's many peaks It just looks crazy. You gotta check that shit out.
I appreciate the praise, man. I appreciate the praise. So
Right.
hella rose,
Yeah.
all the rose.
All the rows, every kind of row there is. So I'm talking about hype
Yeah,
man.
buddy.
Hype man for the right kind of thing.
For sure, man. For sure.
That's
Nice,
legit.
nice.
I'll let you go. That was sick. It was wicked talking to you as always. And
Always G.
people, we hope you got a lot of value out of it as well. Reach out to us. Instagram's a good place. I'm at gsandu coach, GSANDHU coach, COACH. Umar, you are at?
I'm at Omar Malik, UMARMALIK_91.
Yeah, check us out. Reach out to us. Tell us what you think of the podcast. We're psyched to hear your thoughts, constructive, good, and negative, whatever you want to, however you want to put it to us. And yeah, put us your questions. The more you ask, the more we gain out of the conversation, and more everybody else gains as well. So, till next time.
Thanks, guys. It's been really good. That was another great one. Short one, but hopefully you guys got value. I know I definitely did.
Yeah, man. Chow that down in one.
Yes.